Well, hello, guys. It looks like we had the same idea when it came to T-shirts today.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, go
Just
public
no
with
matter what
purpose,
you do, go.
even when it's hard.
Anyone
Thanks,
who's listening to this can't see us, but we're wearing the same
yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah. Thanks, Ken, for the T-shirts. Maybe you can do a screenshot and post
When
it.
I go out and about, I don't wear a mask. I just put this over my face. It protects me from everything.
Yeah, the coronavirus just sees that and it just stays away from you.
They run. So
You have to
How are you
run.
guys holding up?
Good.
getting used to the daily grind in my pajamas.
Good.
You guys don't see it right now, but I got my pajamas on here.
Well, I thought what we could talk about today, guys, is I think we've kind of talked about, the emotional stuff that goes along with what's been happening in our world the last couple of months. We've talked about what we need to be doing, how we can help our clients, how we can help our own business, how to survive, how to thrive. I thought today we could talk a little bit about what we think the new world is going to look like after this, because I really don't think we'll go back to business as usual in many ways. I think the way that we think about business, do business, I saw in the news yesterday that J. Crew has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy as a result of this, the first
Mhm.
major brand, and I think there'll be others that follow suit. So I think there's going to be a lot of companies, small, big, medium, rethinking a lot of different things. And this whole stay at home, do things online exclusively, people rushing to do e-commerce has really uncovered a lot of things, good, bad, indifferent. So today, why don't we talk about, what our predictions are for this new world that we're going to be living in after this. Um, and, I'm not holding any of us to it, obviously, because none of us know for sure. But I think there's some interesting discussions that I know we've had internally, you've had with other colleagues and clients, and maybe we just bat around what we're seeing and feeling and observing, both in our own business and our clients' business, and what we're sensing in the world in general, and just say, like, what have we learned? What are the takeaways, and how has it changed people? And what is the new landscape going to look like? And what do we need to be really looking at, considering as agency owners? So,
Mm.
who wants to go first?
Like it. Well, I'll just say that I don't think, and I think we know this. I don't think we have uh, any knowledge that no one else has as far as predicting. But I think some of the things that I'm seeing and feeling, I'll even venture to say that I think business may be a little bit easier for agencies, and we can debate this after this initial, maybe because of this thing that we're going through, or maybe because of some of the pullback, some of the recession, some of the reset that we're seeing. What we saw, what I've observed personally in our business, and then even businesses before, dating back over, say, over the last 15 years, as it's gradually come from the last recession and we've gotten to such a height. I remember thinking back in January, like, what could the economy always needs to reset. That's cyclical. It always happens, right? But I remember sitting there with a bunch of other people in a little mastermind group and trying to really figure out, like, what could we see actually resetting it? There was nothing. There was no real estate bubble. There was no, so this was completely unexpected, yet it happened. And I think the reason I say that is things were going so fast that, man, I would say in some ways it felt harder to do business. Um, and I think what I mean by that is it's very noisy. It was extremely noisy. It was extremely competitive. Things were overly commoditized. Um, Egos were really big on client side and even agency side. There's just an inflation that seemed like it was the case. And as painful as a reset is, I think that pullback brings us back to the fundamentals of like what's really important, brings us back to human beings, humbles us all, like the marketplace, in a way that I think is advantageous to people that are genuine, to businesses that really are in it for the right reasons and that are good and ethical and actually produce results. And I think if you have those qualities, it's easier to be seen through that. So I think that may be a harder time, but if you have those qualities, I think you actually have an easier time at connecting with people who really need what you have to offer. That's my thought.
Ken, what do you feel as far as like your current clients versus, like, give me kind of a picture of what you feel the future will look like as far as when you're engaging for new business, or let's say you're going to onboard a new customer.
Yeah.
What do you think that the sentiment will feel like in the future versus what it felt like a year ago? Like,
well,
will there be less people vying for, or more people vying for that business?
Well, we were
Who
talking
will have the leverage?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier. I think, and personally, I think that I think agencies tend to fall into the category of all being the same sometimes, because I understand the struggle of like trying to be identifiable with clients, and like, if clients looking for a certain thing, you want to make sure they can find you for that thing, but really that's not what makes you unique. And what makes you unique will be the thing that makes them choose you. And that's true with any business, right? Like if you sell, I often talk about silicone rings, like sell silicone rings, like those are, if you just say I sell silicone rings and 5 other companies do it, and that's a commodity, and you just pick the cheapest one or whatever. So you have to make it more than that. And I think that that can be hard when there's, it can be hard all the time. And I think that we fell into a place where personally, I just feel like that wasn't focused on a lot, and maybe wasn't even seen as necessary. I think that now, as you're vying for business, I believe that there's going to be more need to find the right match that's going to get the right results on the client side and on the agency side or the service provider side, because there's less room for messing around, or trying something and it not working, or, and even time. Like, even no one ever liked spending money and it not working, but like now time is important, right? Like I think when everything's good, you kind of never think that it's going to end, So if you're a business looking for people to help, accomplish a certain project, you may just spend forever trying to get it done, or, or an extended period of time. Like the urgency is maybe not as much there. And I think it just shifts some things. So I think that it's going to be more about connecting on a level that actually matches versus a cattle call, commoditized, who's the cheapest. And, because again, like a Facebook marketer is not a Facebook marketer is not a Facebook marketer. We all know that. That was always the case, but that didn't always seem like the case before. And I think now, when things start pulling back and things get a little bit harder, that tension, that stress causes you to maybe be a little wiser about decisions on everyone, right? And so businesses, I think, are going to be in that boat as well. That's what I believe. And I'll just end on this. Like it's what do you guys think? I saw it harder. It just seemed overinflated so much that it was harder to cut through the noise, harder to please people, harder to, keep employees. Like just everything was more competitive before, because it's just like everyone's running super high. Everyone's a free agent. And I think that it doesn't work well that way.
So go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of going back in the day, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when digital marketing was so fresh and new. I feel like we're getting a reset. And I think what people are going to, the new world will be more sensitive to value versus cost, I think. I think, we've talked about this a lot on our podcast about how agency services always become commoditized over time because it's an expertise that not a lot of people know. And then as more people know it, and as systems and tactics become more common and proven, then it becomes commoditized because everyone can do it. So the logo, and the creative services that you would have a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 employee turns into unlimited $1,000 a month creative services online in a matter of just a few years. Things like that, and like you said, Ken, Facebook ads management and other things. But I think what people have learned through this is it shakes out all the fluff. It shakes out all the maybe the coolest, latest, and greatest tactics and really cheap ways of doing things. And it brings us back to, like you said, Ken, people are now looking for experts. The whole example I use is I would rather buy a $150 pair of boots that last me for 10 years, 10 seasons than, a $50 pair of boots that last me 2 to 3 seasons. That's a much better value for my money. And in the same way, I think what I'm hearing and seeing is people are like, I need an expert now. I need to build and create something that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to generate revenue smarter for me, maybe faster, but not with tactics, but with real expertise. And I think that's what people are going to be more sensitive to. So I think there's an opportunity for agency owners and consultants to step up and put on their A game and not have to play in the commodity world as much, and really say, I can provide a level of expertise that will help you to build a more resilient company, a better funnel, more diverse channels that will help you to endure this if something like this were happen again.
We, on our last podcast, we had Dan Cobb, who's an agency owner in Detroit. It's a good episode if you guys haven't heard it. But he said something that I thought was always interesting. He's like, a lot of people will sell themselves as a certain service. Like he sees it kind of as an analogy of like a toolkit and tools. And sometimes the tools, like a hammer, I'm a hammer. That's all I do is hammer, hammer, hammer. That's like, he sees that was more of a one type of service, but that service could become a commodity, where he sees his agency as the actual toolbox, right? He's the one that's the strategy. He'll find the folks to do the hammering if that's what the strategy leads to. But it's that idea of like, do you feel like that this expertise, where does this expertise come from then in your agency? Or do you have to hire it now? Or is it something that how do you think about your business differently if you're trying to kind of get rid of your commodity services, or at least not have those people on staff? Like you said, Bob, used to pay $60,000, $70,000 for someone to do a certain service that now you could hire them at a really small fixed cost a month that's done overseas, because it has become a commodity. Where do you guys see, like, as an agency, if you were to rethink like your agency, model, do you now hire different people because there's more people available, there's more expertise now that are looking for jobs? Do you rethink your team? Do you,
I think that's, so I can tell you the way I think about it, and it's at least the way I believe it is, well, first of all, I want to say, like, those commodities, like those things that have become commodities, I'm not suggesting that you fight that, right? Like I think some people are, well, you may be prone to be like kind of angry about that. I know I'm not in real estate, but I know I've interacted with real estate agents, over the last 10 years. I've sold a few houses and bought some, right? So in that interaction, it's been interesting. You see certain real estate agents embracing where technology's gone, with like it being, the data is more democratized. You don't have to go through a real estate agent to necessarily find a house, right? So, and that's actually an interesting model of how that shifted. I think you look at the successful ones and you see that they play well with that, right? Like they adapt and they use it in their strategy. And the maybe arguably less successful ones, the ones I've interacted with, I actually had someone, just because I called them directly and I had found the house through like a Zillow, they clearly were not happy about that. Like just the fact that, these places exist, and they were like, they literally told me, I will not help you unless, because I don't believe in that. I'm like, okay, well, I wish your buyer knew, your seller knew that, because you're turning down a potential buyer. But if you fight it, I guess the point is I think you have to work with it, right? Like, so the acceleration of technology, which maybe does make a lot of these things easier to get done and maybe commoditizes them, isn't necessarily a bad thing. And when it is a bad thing, then you actually have a genuine reason to sort of add value and say, well, here's the difference. Like, you can get a logo for $5, or you could, get a logo that's done this way. And if there's a logical reason, then I think you've got a leg to stand on, and that's what you push forward. But I think the point is I think you do have to play with it, play nicely with it. But I think it also comes down to, you're constantly asking yourself, like, what is it that I do that's really unique? Like, what makes me really good at what I do and really unique at the core? Because it's not really the services when you get down to it. Like, the tactics of pressing buttons ultimately is really not what you want to get hired for anyway, right? And so that's never been the case. Like, you've never wanted to be hired for that. And maybe for a while you were hired for that. But as that continually gets simplified, that's going to go away. So what is yours, like, as an agency or a service provider or any business, like, what is like your uniqueness, that value that you can add regardless of if it's easy or if it's hard, right? And so even in that last episode, which was really good, like, Dan was great. He even talked about like how, like, you don't want to stop doing those things, right? It's a service. If it's a service that is hard to do and you have the expertise to execute it, and that's a great thing. But because it's providing value, but like, you want to sort of step back from that and be able to have the expertise to guide the strategy on a more unique level. And that adds value, I think, at a greater level.
Yeah. It's for us, I think our agency is a little bit more in line with with Dan Cobb from our last episode is really our we do sell and we do services that would be considered commodities for sure. And sometimes it's even hard for me to get my employees to think outside of that box and think of the bigger value that we offer. But I do feel like strategy is our biggest offering that's valuable, but not just strategy. And having a seat at the table, right? When you're kind of dealing with the C-suite or people who are actually making strategic decisions, as an agency, we have to be there. Otherwise, we quickly become just a note taker, right? We're just taking notes and implementing some other strategy that was developed behind closed doors. And it may not be a great strategy. It's just, we find ourselves implementing things that are not the best they could be. But really for me and this maybe comes from my mindset, is that I'm really fiscally minded. So everything that I do, I have to see a fairly quick return on investment for it. And I have to actually value it to a dollar amount. Otherwise it's hard. And I've been in the space where I've been in my career for so long. I've done tons of branding. I've done things that are very difficult to even say, how much money did that make our customer? And I couldn't even tell you. I said, well, it made money somewhere. It helped to make money because our direct response campaign really worked well. And I could measure the response to a dollar amount. But the branding was a big expense that I could never measure toward anything. But I think with me right now that's the focus that I get into. If there is an opportunity, I always like to show the monetary return on investment. Because if you don't do that, then I think that's where you just become this commoditized business that is being told what to do, versus really adding that value. Because I look at our agency as if I were a financial advisor, right? The first thing you do when you hire a new financial advisor and you're going to give them, let's say I'm going to give you $100,000. The first question you ask them is, what could I expect my return to be for the next year? Like, that's the first question you ask any advisor, right? How much money are you expecting to make from my money for me? And so the same thing comes with us too, is that I look at our business is that you have to think that way. And even if you do things that are like promotional and you really can't tie a direct response or return on financial investment, you still have to think that way. And that's the way we need to address all the stuff that we do personally, I think, because in the end, that's what all of our customers want and that they need. You know, they need to be able to show that they made money. And it's going to be even tougher now when we're going to, we may actually get into a full recession here by next fall. If things don't really pick up well, we really are going to be in a bad recession. Well, your clients are going to want that more than ever. And so if you get your mindset around that to say, I'm not a marketer, I'm a financial advisor, then even your employees get that mindset. I think that would be beneficial moving forward, because I think that's what's going to differentiate. See, I see what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot more competition. There's going to be a lot of desperate people out there looking for work. And so that one customer that I'm able to respond to because they reach out to us, there may be quite a few more agencies that are going after that business than it was in good times, to be honest with you, because people are more desperate. So then I have to, as an agency, stand out even further, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to understand that their needs going to be quite different, where in good times, companies will spend money and they'll take risks and they'll throw money out there and do projects that they don't have to show return on investment. And 6 months from now, everything is going to have a strong financial return on investment.
And I think one of the things that we can be doing that will strengthen that is start beefing up and quantifying those return on investments that you've done in the past. I think solid case studies and examples are going to be gold, because what I'm seeing now, and I think will only increase, is we're going to get potential clients, customers saying, I need to see how you've done this before. I need to see an example of how you get the ROI for your clients, and I want to see it documented. I think that's going to be how the world changes in the future. And I think that that's something that agency owners, consultants, whoever you are in that range need to be really beefing up, because I agree with you 100%, Brad, that you need to be looking at this as ROI, not even ROAS, not even in market share, not even, those are all important for some clients and they will continue to be. But I think marketing specifically for too long, and I've been guilty of this, we all have, it's too easy to claim ownership when campaigns are successful, and it's too easy to blame other things when they're not successful. And I think those days are winding down. I don't think clients are going to put up with that anymore. They really want to know, are you a professional? What's the return you're going to give on my money? And let me see where you've done it before with other clients. I think that's how they're going to start vetting people, not who's the cheapest, not who can get you the most clicks or impressions, but how are you going to help me make money? And let me prove to me that you've done it before.
Yeah. And I think, we've seen this too, is that being a creative agency is great, but creativity now has become a commodity. Like, the bar of creatives are really high, but just because you launch a creative execution doesn't mean that it's actually going to make money for you. We've all seen great Super Bowl ads that we just love the creative. Right. And 10 seconds later, you're like, who was that for again? I can't even recall the brand, because there was so much into the creative, but it wasn't really the right creative to sell. So, there's a lot of things, and this is a good time right now to really evaluate your business and go, where do I find that I have a niche to be able to make money for my customers? And where do I have the track record that I can have these case studies that I can say, okay, I can definitely make money for my customers if we did this. Again, that's not a bad thing. And if that's not that alone might weed out commodity business, because most commodity business that I've seen is doing something for the sake of doing it and doing it cheap, but never having accountability for what you're building to the point where you have to show return on investment. And so once you actually build things where you're accountable for them and you're accountable for the results, that I think is a different level. And I think that starts to immediately weed out the things that would be commodity business. If you can do that.
Yeah, I would also say too, I think honesty and authenticity are going to be held to a much higher value, because you can tell clients, you don't need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, and this is why. This is not a good spend of your money. I think it's been too easy to, when the money's flowing and things are great, to offer services that might be good revenue for you as an agency owner, but may not be a good return on investment for the client. And I think those agencies that are going to shine and thrive are going to be a lot more honest and authentic with their clients. Because, I mean, you guys have all seen, clients come with expectations of, if you could do this for me, then we're going to blow the top off of it. And deep inside, you're saying, I don't think that's the way it's going to happen, but I'll get you that if you want it for a bunch of money. I've had examples through the years of, clients to say, if you can just help get me on, interviewed on Good Morning America, then my book will go to #1 or my movie will sell out. And, every once in a while we'll be able to get them on a major news show or primetime morning coffee interviews. And guess what? They didn't sell any books and the movie didn't go do well. Am I willing to be honest about things like that and say, I know that's cool and makes you look good and feel good, but that's not a good return on your money that it's going to cost you to get there and to get that interview. Things like that, whether it be paid advertisements, creatives, things like that, to say what's going to be, like you said, Brad, the best ROI for them. So I think honesty and authenticity is going to be put at a much higher premium in this new world, because people aren't going to want to spend their money. They're going to want to trust people to say, are you going to spend my money wisely?
Yeah.
I think that's why the commodity thing is not going to succeed or be the determining factor, right? Because, and I also think that's why maybe the competition thing, like there may be more people competing for it, but there may be a more clear match. Because ultimately, look, none of us can guarantee any results, and you can't, because you don't own the product, the company, and you can't tell the future. I think it's kind of naive to even think that we can. I'm not, and we're not saying that, but I think a lot of people, you hear it said often. I hear it said often, and so I think as an agency, your job is to lead in the expertise that you have and challenge the beliefs appropriately so that you get your client to the right place. And it's very much like a coach, and a coach can't play your game for you, and he can't win the game for you. He can only stand alongside you with the expertise that he has, help get you ready, help train you, and give you feedback and try to contribute based on his expertise, her expertise, to help you win. But you still have to win, and I think that I see that analogy as, or whatever, analogy, metaphor, whatever. I see that how it being the way that agencies and clients should interact. And then there are places that you do things like obviously you're implementing, there's tactical stuff and all that kind of stuff. Arguably, some of those things will eventually be commoditized. And so I don't think you should build your business around that, because if you do, it's eventually going to get automated or made simpler or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would offer those right where they make sense, but try not to build your business model around them. But I also think that we've got to educate, business has never been short term. Like, you don't create a successful business by thinking short term. it's a balance because you have to win and the short term, and you also have to win the long term, right? But the long term is harder to measure stuff. And so as agencies, I think part of it is like educating on, like right now, it's harder to win short term, right? Like in a lot of industries, it's harder to get sales, immediate sales and those kind of things. But arguably there are a lot of long-term opportunities right now. So how do you educate based on the changing market conditions to be investing in the right things that don't produce an immediate ROI, but will produce a strategic long-term ROI, and find the short-term wins? And I think for too long, not our focus, but like the market it's so easy to focus on short-term. Like the idea of just hacking your way to the finish line was possible. And it's a really kind of flawed way of doing business, and it doesn't produce really successful, deep, long-term results. And now we're sort of being forced to like grapple with what is the balance between short-term thing, wins and all that kind of stuff, getting all the low-hanging fruit that you can, but also educating around, hey, here's like the strategy that you have to take, or that from our expertise, we believe you should take to actually win long-term, achieve your goal long-term. But I certainly don't think that you could ever adopt the success of the ultimate success of your client, because that's kind of in their hands, right? You can only bring alongside your expertise and challenge and bring everything that you have to the table for it.
Yeah. I'm really curious of like the next 6 months, if we are going to feel from our clients more nitpicking on pricing, more trying to being beat up a little bit more on pricing than we have the last 3 or 4 years. And because, obviously you either have a buyer's market or a seller's market. And with a recession, the buyer has typically the upper hand. So at some level, I'm wondering if that's going to, change some of our pricing models, if that's going to, again, if we're going to see us going back to the drawing board when we do proposals, because, we're being asked to, it's going to be interesting. We'll see for sure. But my feeling is if this,
would you say that, I'm curious for you to dig into that a little bit, like, is that because of, I would think if your prices are maybe overinflated, then yes, but I would think that if it's like, hey, here's what it takes to be successful, what you're trying to do, like, it'd be hard to.
Well, I think there's a certain level of cost to get into to do certain things for our clients. Right. But I think when it comes to like special projects and things they're more price conscious, I think that they, we may see that. I don't know. We hadn't, again, the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like our pricing has been good. I feel like we haven't gotten a ton of pushback every so often, but it's normal pushback. It's not like intense pushback to the point where they're threatening to find someone, or someone else they already have on the hook is going to do it cheaper for them, And I think that's also the value we provide, right? If you're getting a lot of that, where you're constantly being threatened by clients, either clients you have or potential clients that they have all these other vendors that would do it that cheap, then you're probably just you could be just a commodity.
Right. I think that's where I was going. Like, I totally agree with some of those things. I do think like they lead to the same end, like all those paths lead to the same place.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. The question I'm always asking myself is, how are we more and more unique, bringing our unique expertise forward more and more, relying on that and selling that more and more, and relying less on the things that you could be competing on price. I mean, we've talked about the 3 business models before, but like cheapest, best, only one. Commodities, you go to the cheapest, right? Because they're all the same in quality. And while that's not necessarily the case, that's the perception a lot of times. So building your business around it so that that's not the thing you're hanging your hat on, I believe is a smart strategy. I think that we're going to be more known for the philosophies that we believe create success in our particular niches and our areas of expertise than the things we do. And I'm sorry if you're hearing yelling. I'm still at home in my office.
No, I agree with you, Ken. And I think that that whole thing speaks into what we've been saying is your philosophies and your background. It's about going deeper and being more of an expert and having more honesty and authenticity. All of these things is, gone are the days for many businesses and some of our own clients of, I can do this in-house for a lot cheaper, so I think I'm going to spend my money there. I think we have an opportunity to stand up and say, let us show you our depth and breadth of experience, our motivation for why we're doing it, our philosophy, and, a history and examples of it, of doing it. And that's where I think the value proposition is going to be versus just taking, everything we can as an agency or a consultant to make ends meet. I think we need to shore our belt up, clean house internally, and say, how can I provide the highest level of expertise and ROI, as Brad said, for our clients? Because that's what they need. That's what they're going to be looking for. And I'm already seeing it, guys, as an independent consultant. I'm seeing out there, people call me, people asking questions, just observing from afar. The word that keeps popping up is, I need an expert in this. I need an expert in this. I need an expert. I'm not hearing, hey, can you come down on your price, or can you show me where the cheapest way to get it? I'm hearing first is, where can I find an expert who's done this before? And that's where we're going to be able to, like you said, put on our A game and really step up and show these clients and potential clients how we've been an expert. And if we're not an expert, and if we have been playing in the commodity world, I suggest if you're going to survive as an agency, you need to pivot fast, because you referred to, and I hate that we're always picking on realtors, because I respect and I know a lot of good ones, but when the housing market is great, all you got to do is go to real estate school online for a week and a half, get your real estate degree, and start listing all the houses around you, fill out some paper, and then you get $10,000-$15,000 commission checks. Who wouldn't want to do that? You're basically an order taker. And when the housing market is booming, all of a sudden you get glutted with realtors. But when the housing market dries up and we go through recessions of whatever size, everyone gets out of the real estate market, and the ones that are still there are the ones that are making a ton of money, because they're experts and they know how to really service people, and they really understand the business. They're not taking orders. So I think we can do the same as agency owners is, what are we going to do to shore up and be the last one standing? And I think that's about everything we've talked about. It's about being an expert, showing we've done it before, caring about ROI above and beyond, almost above everything. And like you said, Ken, I think it's really important is leading with values, leading with why we're doing it, having a strong philosophies.
I mean, I think we're definitely going to have to, I'm certainly not saying it's that you said shore up your belt. Like, I think there's going to be a period of time where, look, people have needs now more than ever. Arguably, businesses have needs now more than ever. Their resources are either lower, or there's an uncertainty about it that makes them want to hold on to it more, right? Which is reasonable. We all have that. So, like you, Bob, I've had more people reach out to me in this time more than ever, asking for me to jump on the phone and sort of give them advice about how they should adjust their business. And we're in the e-commerce world. So like, I have a lot of people that have never even reached out to me before that know me on LinkedIn or something like that. And they have a business that's dependent on wholesale and distributors and those kind of things. And they're like, how do I start thinking about that? And it's a healthy business. It was, but now it's being challenged. And they're like, how do I start thinking about, creating a DTC strategy? Now, the need is there. They probably are strapped for cash, or if they're not, again, their mind is, and that's reasonable. So I think there's going to be a time, and we're in it, and I think it's going to continue, who knows how long, where you're going to have to be really efficient and really successful and all that kind of stuff. And like, you're going to have to like hold your breath a little bit and wait this out. But in doing that, the way that we're going to be able to grow and succeed is by figuring out what it is that makes us better at what we do than anybody else in that field. And by doing that and being able to survive through that period successfully, and I believe that's looking at why you're unique and not really looking at the commodities, like going really deep. I think then you, on the other side of that, now you've got like a really distilled idea of who you are and why you're so valuable. And I think through that actually makes it easier to sell. And I do think even in the time that we're in right now, I think like people are looking for more matches, at least in my experience. It's like looking for the best match to Bob, what you said first. It's not that price doesn't matter. It's just that like, I need to find the right person for the job. Like that's really important. Like, are you legit? Are you genuine? Like, do I think you're going to do it, be able to do it? Like, that's more important than, okay, how do we figure out the price thing? And I think I've noticed that shift in priority a little bit, and I haven't, and that is a shift that, at least from my experience. You know, Tony Robbins, I quote every once in a while, but he says that really to be successful at business, it's really simple. You just have to add more value than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really relevant right now. And this is like, okay, how do you, like, if you're getting gouged on price because you're doing something that other people are doing for cheaper, like the perceived value is better on that side. So how do you figure that out? If you can figure out that, and by adding more value, I used to think add more value, that means add more cost. Like it doesn't necessarily, right? Adding more value doesn't necessarily mean adding more time or anything like that. It's really putting your entrepreneur's hat on and like figuring out that equation. Like, how can I create a more valuable offering, the most valuable offering for in the most efficient way? Mm. And that's the thought process that we're going through right now. And I would imagine that most businesses should be is like figuring that out.
Yeah, I think that there will be a much higher priority put on marketing moving forward. I don't know if there'll be a huge pullback in spending. I just think it'll be reallocated in different ways. I think what you potentially might see is, again, this is just my opinion right now, I could be totally wrong, is I think you're going to see layoffs. And I think you're going to see less in-house talent, and you're going to see more outsourcing, that they can scale and they can manage budgets and they can make wiser choices. You know, hiring experts externally, that can bring a much higher value than 4 or 5 people internally. That's going to make a lot more sense, and it's going to allow them to weather whatever recession as a result or whatever damage that they've incurred, which again just speaks to everything we've talked about for the past hour. Is, you know, if that's the case, and if I'm sitting there as a CEO or a CFO, I'm saying we've got to cut costs, but if we're going to stay alive, we can't cut marketing, we can't cut customers, we can't obviously cut anything that's going to affect sales. We're too top heavy. We've got our headcount's too high. How can we achieve this just as well and better with outside expertise? Yeah. So those are going to be some opportunities that I think are going to be out there for agency owners and agencies in general.
I think another opportunity too is that I think there's going to be a lot of clients who use this opportunity to shop around. Because, you know, let's say that I was a customer and over the last couple of months, I've had to reduce my spending with my agency to the point where my agency actually had to let people go that was helping to manage and support the account. Well, what happens now is over the next 2 or 3 months, this client doesn't get the level of service they've been getting over the last 4 or 5 years, right? Just because they've had to reduce some of their budget. So now they actually see the loyalty of their agency. And the agency just may have made decisions based because they have to financially make those tough decisions. But now what happens is they're like, hey, let's try to find maybe a different, vendor at this point, a different agency to work with. And so as if we're rethinking our businesses, customers are rethinking their business and rethinking what they need And so I think maybe the future could be good because, you know, you might have there's a lot more customers who are looking for agency of record type of agencies to work with, more, you know, some they're looking for long-term partners. And so it might be a good opportunity moving forward there too. So I don't know, every, you know, with a recession like this, there comes positives and negatives, and hopefully they outweigh each other and there's benefits for both. So
I do think there are positives and negatives, and I do think it's a challenging period, and I don't think that should be sugar-coated, and I think you should prepare appropriately for it, at least, yeah. and weather it, but also there are also opportunities, and you've got maybe a big opportunity to thrive through it. And, you know, I don't think it's going to go back to the way it was. It's going to go forward to something new. Mm. And no one knows what that is, but that gives you an opportunity. I mean, no one knows what that is. So now everything's leveled off. You can, you know, everyone's at the starting line again, kind of thing. And that in some ways it's like re-leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
And, you know, that creates maybe advantages for people that they didn't have before.
Yeah. You know, I think every business is so different. I mean, we you know, we talk a lot about small businesses, and, you know, we're small business owners, but when you're looking at like an agency that supports a major brand, they might have, you know, just 200 people working on that one account, and there's so many moving parts, and there's so much media traffic, and there's so much other things that, you know, these customers are going to look for companies who can support them, right? Mm-hmm. And they're not companies who are outsourcing every piece of the pie. They need a really well-oiled engine. They need 100 experts because their business is so diverse and they're everywhere. And so I think every business has its own challenges for sure. And, you know, for us, we're a small business mindset. I mean, because we are a small business. So, you know, we have to work within that context. And so our future might look different. I feel personally like I'm trying to keep us as lean as possible right now, just because I don't know the future. Like, the future to me is, I don't know what 6 months looks like right now with what's going on with this virus. I don't know if things are going to feel better this summer and then they're going to pick back up again in the fall, and we're going to be back where we were in March, you know, where we're more isolated again. And so I just want to, you said, Ken, I'm looking to weather the storm, right? So for a business to weather the storm, they need to go, okay, let's tighten up our belts. Let's kind of keep ourselves as lean as possible so that we have a minimal amount to actually serve our clients, but we're not fat and we're not overspending in areas right now. Now that might look different in 6 months, but for me, I'm kind of in that boat. I'm like, I don't know what 6 months looks like at all right now. I can only guess maybe A, B, or C scenarios, and I have to be prepared if the A scenario comes to fruition, right? Otherwise, I might be out of business. So whatever that, you know, everybody has to do that for their own business, and they have to realize, how long can I survive if this is the atmosphere?
Yeah,
because go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's probably a good place to kind of start winding down and just say, you know, none of us know for sure. I mean, I think we all have some opinions, but I think, you know, the consensus is it won't be the same, and there is some opportunity. And I do think it has shaken out things that need to be shaken out, and it has evolved into something that could be some really good opportunities for those of us who have experience, who are thinking about values and thinking about bringing expertise, and for new young entrepreneurs and agency owners. You know, you can learn from this, and you could start and lead out with, you know, being experts in your field and bringing, like Ken, like you said, is like a high level of value and knowledge to your clients versus just trying to be the cheapest commodity and just grab as much business as you can. I think those days are gone to some degree. They might come around again, who knows? But I think this has been a good discussion, and it'll be interesting to look back and have this discussion in 6 months and a year from now and see where we are, how we were wrong, how we were right, all that good stuff. And I'm sure we will.
It's a learning experience. So
yeah, just awesome. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
for your time.
Until the next one.
Until
The next one, guys. Talk to you
Right.
soon.